is doing whatever they can to villainize black men, and that is an issue. A couple of days ago, I was on YouTube and I came across this video called Anti versus Pro Feminism, and it looked like a very interesting topic to watch, and so I clicked on the video and I watched the video in its entirety, and I was very intrigued and interested as far as what was being said and the topics being discussed. Even though I don't think it was a very productive conversation, I do think it was a very interesting conversation. Now, I'm not going to go through and analyze the panel, or I'm not going to go and analyze what was said on this video, because that's not really what drew me into wanting to make a video about that. What really drew me in is the black woman that is sitting in the front on the panel, and that is because she represents a lot of black women who continue to be in these feminism spaces. And while I feel that feminism continues to fail black women, and since feminism ignores black women's problems, ignores black women's issues, does not acknowledge that these issues exist, then I definitely feel as if black women need to stop being a part of the feminist movement. Even though they call it black feminism, I don't even think they should be a part of feminism at all, because it does nothing to help them. It does nothing to empower them. It does nothing to really address the issues that black women are going through. I do want to say that I totally agree that women should have equal rights. Women should have a voice. Women should be able to speak on their issues and problems. Their problems need to be addressed. The problems need to be solved. And it's very important that they have a seat at the table in order for these problems to be discussed. So I'm all for women's equal rights. I'm all for fighting for the rights of women. Never had an issue with that. My issue with feminism, or black feminism, is that now it's gotten to the point where when you hear a black feminist talk, when you hear feminists talk, they are bashing men. They're bashing black men, and I cannot get behind that. I feel like that as black women, we are able to have our voice. We are able to empower each other, but not at the expense of black men. And I do feel like that is the direction that feminism is going. And so since it's going that way, I definitely don't want to identify solely on that. I just say, hey, I think that women should have equal rights, but all that other stuff that you all want to throw in there, yeah, you can keep all that. All right, so I just wanted to say that part. All right, so let's get on into the video. So this is the panel of women that were asked to speak on this feminism issue. You have 2 trans women that are in the back, and you have 3 women of color, I'm assuming, that are also a part of the panel. But I'm going to concentrate on this black woman, and that is because she continuously brought up issues that are the concerns of black women. Now, more than likely, she probably was brought on the panel to speak on black women's issues, but I am going to talk about the reason why, if you're going to have a black woman on the panel to talk about black women's issues, then it should be talked about. She shouldn't be the only one talking about it. It should be a conversation that's happening on the panel, and you will see in the video that is not. She pretty much is having a conversation by herself. So the host, of course, asks various questions, and the women give their answers. So the first question that she posed to the panel was just a generalized statement on feminism. Do they feel like that feminism is going to die out? Do they feel like that feminism is something that we still need? And of course, anybody can chime in to give their opinion. This is what the black woman had to say about mainstream feminism.
I think as a black woman specifically, when you talk about feminism, yeah, the mainstream first thing you think about is a certain type of feminism that tends to exclude still, even today, even with intersectional feminism, exclude African-American women. And it's always kind of done that. And also upper middle class white women has predominantly been the face of what we quote unquote consider feminism.
Now, what she said is exactly what's wrong with mainstream feminism. Mainstream feminism has never been for black women. It was started by white women in order for them to have equal status and equal rights when it came to white men. But they left out an important part of that when it came to black women, and that is the issue of race. White women do not have to worry about race, so that was not an issue that was a part of the feminist movement. And so when black women came into into that space and was like, hey, you know, we have these other issues that we are, you know, that we're going through. Why are we not addressing those issues? When they saw that mainstream feminism was not addressing these issues, they in turn broke away from mainstream feminism per se and created black feminism. And black feminism gives black women the space to be able to talk about the issues that they experience, including race, and to be able to come up with these solutions to empower black women. So what's interesting about what's happening on the video is after she gave her response and said that mainstream feminism is not inclusive, no one acknowledged that fact. There was no conversation. There was no validation. There was no, oh, well, you're absolutely right, this is a flaw within mainstream feminism that definitely needs to be addressed. No one said a word. And when someone did say a word, which is the white woman beside her, this is what she had to say as far as the inclusivity of mainstream feminism.
I think feminism is attempting to say, okay, the first thing we agree on is that there are barriers and friction to what I need and what I want based on the fact that I'm a woman. What it ignores is that, and what privilege is that you may not have to think that being a woman and being a black woman and being a black woman who has a disability, for example, impacts you further. You have more barriers, you have more friction, you are less able to get what you want. You're undervalued in a way that's like, okay, well, you know, that's life. That's what I mean by equity, and that we're able to, without friction, all get the same needs met.
It sounds good, doesn't it? When she's talking, you would almost think that mainstream feminism really pushes equality as far as black women and other women, all right? But we all know that that is not the case. That is not true. Mainstream feminism does not touch on those issues. They do not touch on the issues that are plaguing black women. They ignored those issues. And so the white woman is continuously saying, hey, we have all these barriers. She was talking about, you know, we have barriers within feminism, and sometimes we have these subset barriers also that other women are facing. But we're all coming together and we're talking about these issues and we're meeting in the middle. And you know, we are making sure that everybody's voice is heard so that, you know, equality can be achieved. And we all know that that is a lie. And she knows that's not the truth. She knows mainstream feminism is not speaking on black women's issues. She knows that that the mainstream feminism, when it comes to black women, they most of the time do this right here. They turn their head. They don't speak on it. They don't discuss it, and they hope that it goes away. And when a black woman brings it up, this is exactly what happens as far as what this black woman just experienced. No one says a word. No one says a word. They just move on to the next topic, or they try to pacify her and make it seem as though what she's saying is not true. She's saying it a different way. I mean, they might not be saying it with their words, but their silence speaks a lot. And that is a huge issue in mainstream feminism when it comes to black women. They cannot even acknowledge that black women are experiencing these things, and they cannot even say to themselves, yes, this is something that we definitely need to address. They're not going to say that. They are not saying that, but they continue to push this narrative as if mainstream feminism is for all women, when we all know that that is not true. So it's funny that this black woman continued to say how mainstream feminism does not include black women. Like, I think she said it at least two or three times. She wanted to reiterate that fact. And I feel like she wanted to reiterate that fact because she really wanted some conversation to come of that. She really wanted to spark some conversation amongst the women in the panel. And she got absolutely no response. She got absolutely no feedback. And so here she is once again talking about that mainstream feminism does not include black women, and she goes even further to talk about kind of what does mainstream feminism really look like.
the point of what people, especially Black women, other people who are anybody who's not white, why we hear feminism and we don't want that label, because it means, I'm just gonna say, it means that. Like, it means that you've already gotten to a pinnacle of whatever you think your happiness needs or whatever your survivalist needs are, when there are people on lower end who are trying to survive, who are trying to get to a point of what should be normal, based on what other people have.
It sort of sounds like you're saying feminism is not always inclusive then.
Right. It's most of the time it's not inclusive. It's more times than not, it's not. So, and within the just feminism space, again, there obviously the very basic is male versus female versus, but unfortunately, we've only had one subset of women be the face and voice and the academics and research and everything to be able to say, well, that's the standard we need to be in, when there are other people who are still trying to get to some type of normalcy and just living.
And after she said that, there's no dialogue, there's no feedback. She was completely ignored. And what she says is absolutely correct. As Black women, we can clearly see when it comes to mainstream feminism, the face that you see when mainstream feminism is mentioned. You see middle-aged white women, and now you're seeing trans women included in that. Black women still ain't in there. They're still not in mainstream feminism. Their issues definitely are not being addressed. They're not being addressed. And so they're just like on the sidelines. They're on the silence. We'll get to y'all in a minute. Okay, we'll get to y'all in a minute. We got other problems that we need to address. Yours can wait. And I think at this point, just from her facial expressions, you can pretty much see that she's kind of like, I'm over it. I can see why we have Black feminism, because it is a space that we can actually discuss these issues openly and comfortably. And then, what really got me was the face that the white woman beside her made when she was making this observation. Do you see the face? Invalidation is what that face is. You don't know what you're talking about is what that face is. We don't care about your issues is what that face is. You don't know what you're talking about is what that face means. We are all about equality. You're lying. That's what that face means. We're not going to acknowledge that we don't think about you all and your issues. That's what that face means. Instead of making that face, she should have been coming with some information, some feedback to say, well, you know what? These are the issues that mainstream feminism is trying to do for Black women. And of course, she can't say that because she knows they're not doing anything. When you're doing something, you can speak on it. If they're actually doing something for Black women, somebody on that panel should have been able to speak on that. But they weren't. They did not, because it doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. Otherwise, Black women would not have seen the need to create Black feminism. Now, what I wish she would have done was I wish she would have called a spade and a rat. Like, as Black women, we always want to skirt around the issues. We always want to be politically correct. We don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to be seen as an angry Black woman. So we don't really say what we feel. We don't really say what we really want to say, because we don't want to have people looking at us like, now you can't be on that panel acting like that. So we have to hold back. I mean, she was holding back. I mean, I could tell she really wanted to go there, but she didn't. She did not. But she was trying to talk in code as far as, we just want to have a normal life. That's what we're doing. I mean, y'all setting this bar up as far as this is what normal looks like to you all. But that's not what normal looks like to us, because we are experiencing things that you're not experiencing. So what your normal looks like is not what my normal looks like, because you're going to be, things are going to be coming to you in a different way. And that's what needs to be acknowledged. Now, some of the issues that should have been brought up, and I wish she would have been more specific. If I felt like if she really started throwing out things that Black women, the issues that Black women have that should be issues in mainstream feminism, I think that might have created some dialogue, at least opened some eyes. But to kind of just keep talking in code, see, women that ain't Black, they don't understand that. Talking in code means I don't have to listen to that. Well, I didn't understand what you meant by that. I was confused. But if you really talk direct and you let it be known, this is what it is, then they can't run away from that. That's something that they have to actually look at in the face, and they have to actually talk about it. And she did not do a very good job at really just honing in on these issues and making the panel talk about the issues. Because if we're going to talk about mainstream feminism like we are supposed to be talking about, then Black women's issues should be a part of that if it's inclusive like you say it is. So some of the issues that she should have brought up that as far as not addressed in mainstream media is that Black women are still 3 times likely to die during childbirth than white women. She could have brought up the fact that Black women are disappearing at an alarming rate and nobody's doing anything to find those Black women. She could have talked about how Black women go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm sick, I don't feel well, I feel like something's wrong with my body. And the doctors ignore them. They brush away their symptoms, they send them home, and then they end up dying or becoming even more sick simply because the doctor did not want to listen to them. Now, if this was a Black woman that was not into the bashing of Black men, like a lot of Black feminists are, I don't know if she fits into that criteria, but she also could have brought that up, that mainstream feminism is doing whatever they can to villainize Black men, and that is an issue. Because when you villainize Black men, that ultimately is going to tear down the Black community. So these were some issues that she should have just brought to the table, and that's not even all of them, that's just the ones that I mentioned. But she should have brought that to the table, and she didn't. And I think if she would have brought those issues to the table, these women wouldn't have had no choice but to actually look at them and be uncomfortable for a minute. Because a lot of times when Black people, when we start bringing up our issues, people get quiet. I don't want to talk about that. I mean, that's Black people's issues. Y'all can deal with that. That's not our issues. But we have to sit there and listen to you all talk about your issues that does not even concern us. But we sit there and we listen, and we have to sit there and listen. So she had to end up sitting listening about these other issues that's happening in mainstream media, mainstream feminism, excuse me. But not one time was there any dialogue that would be about the issues happening with Black women. Now, this is the part of the video that really hurt me the most, or really made me feel for this Black woman, and really made me be like, you know what, she should have got up and left at 11 minutes into that conversation when she realized it was not going to be talking about the issues of Black women, or at least bringing up those issues. She should have just walked right on out the door. So the host talked about beauty standards, and of course the other women on the panel brought up pretty privilege, and they had a pretty long conversation about that. And the Black woman did not focus on pretty privilege. She focused on colorism, because in the Black community that would be considered what we consider in the Black community beauty standard, even though it's not really, you know, it's a stupid way of, you know, trying to say who's beautiful and who's not, but it is real. And so she talked about that, because she is a dark-skinned lady. She's not that dark-skinned, but she's dark-skinned to the point that I'm sure in the Black community they would have pointed it out more time than one. And so to her, colorism within the Black community would be the beauty standard that a lot of Black women see themselves facing. Well, we know colorism is not something that those other women on the panel know anything about. So when she starts talking about colorism, she actually gets teary-eyed, because she's had to face that, and it's very hurtful. It's very hurtful. And there was only one person that was at least somewhat compassionate about it, and that was the lady sitting beside her. You can see that she put her little hand on her shoulder to kind of, you know, comfort her. But nobody said a word. I mean, all the issues that they talked about on the panel, they talked about trans women, they talked about abortion, they talked about, you know, feminism in general, and they all had so much to say. I mean, this lady right here on the end, I mean, she's blowing up at everybody. She had something to say on everything. The white lady that sits beside this Black woman, oh, she was definitely having her share to say as well. And then back there in the back, you have Just Pearly Things. She has a podcast where she has majority black women and men on it. So, you know, you're going to sit there and talk to black women and men, but then when it starts talking about these actual, you know, real issues, not relationship issues, which is what she talks about, but real issues, she don't have nothing to say. She's silent. Any other time, she always running her mouth. But when it's time for her to talk about these issues, these experiences, she don't have nothing to say. All she doing is sitting back there waiting for them to talk about something that she can put her 2 cents in. But that is not black women. That's not black women's issues. Nobody gave her any dialogue, no feedback, no conversation. Even the host could have came back and elaborated on what she was saying. Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's the problem. That's the problem. When black women bring up issues, people ignore it. They don't validate it. They don't acknowledge it. They're silent on it. That's the issue with mainstream feminism. And that's why black women need to exit themselves out of this mainstream feminism or feminist movement, organization, or whatever you want to call it. At the very end of the video, she did go ahead and say that's the reason why she is a black feminist. And I'm going to show that right here.
Something we can unify on, but also something that we can make strides in right now that I'm just not seeing. And it's only, again, that's why people feel like you have to be a black feminist, because it's a topic that only really black feminists are talking about because it deals with being black.
All right, so she went ahead at the very end, just pretty much said that's why I'm a black feminist, because, you know, y'all don't, in so many words, y'all don't know nothing about my issues and don't care about my issues. And that's what she should have said, because none of those women were holding their tongue when it came to anything. When it came to whatever was being said, the opinions that they wanted to be said, they did not hold their tongue. So I am a little confused as why she felt like she had to hold hers. She should have left that conversation and let them have some food of thought. And I think she should have made them uncomfortable for just a minute. She should have made them uncomfortable for just a minute. I just wish that she would have just pushed past her apprehension about whatever and just let it all hang out. And left it right there on that panel and left them with something to think about. Even the host, she should have said something. You know, they had a lot to say. You know, they had all these issues that they brought up, and none of them was about black women's issues. And that is a problem. So yeah, that's the reason why I feel like feminism is failing black women, because it's not doing anything for them. They're not in the conversation. They're not a part of the conversation. So if that's the case, then why be a part of it? All right, you all, I am Michele Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.